Hello and welcome to Unjustified, where we always cover the truth, the facts, the good, the bad, the ugly on an unbiased and sometimes very unpopular opinion. This video I'm going to actually do mostly for the ones that are new to this case and are just kind of trying to fill in the gaps or fill in some blanks or, just maybe to answer some basic questions about the whole case, because I know when you're just coming into it, believe me, I know it happened to me as well back in February when I did first come into this case. I was like, I would read this and I would see this and I would watch this video, but there was so many gaps to fill in, and it's hard to fill them in when you really just don't even know where to start. Okay, I was actually sent an article by my sister actually. And she's like, have you saw this article? And so I go look at it, and I hadn't seen it. And it is a brand new article. And I thought, well, I'm just going to read this. And this fills in many, many gaps for anyone that has just stepped into the case. Or even if you haven't just stepped into the case. It's a very interesting article, to say the least. I found it very interesting. If I didn't, I definitely wouldn't sit here and read it. So, yeah, I just wouldn't do that. So, anyway, the name of the article is called The Untold Truth of the Chris Watts Case. But I'm going to read it to you, and as I'm reading it, I'm also going to put up the photos that, are a part of the article as well. So, just to let you know before you get into it, this is probably something most of you already know, but if you're new coming into the case, or if you just want to kick back and listen, it's very interesting. So, let's just get right into it. In August of 2018, Chris Watts made a televised plea for the safe return of his missing wife Shanann and their two daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, after the three were reported missing by a family friend. Chris said on the Denver 7 News in an interview, quote, "I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and she's with the kids," unquote. Sadly, only 2 days after the interview, bodies thought to belong to Shanann and the children were discovered by police at Chris's former place of employment, Anadarko Petroleum Company. Bella and Celeste's remains were reportedly located in crude oil tanks, while Shanann, who was 15 weeks pregnant, was found in a shallow grave on the property. Chris was arrested one day before the remains were recovered, and he confessed to killing Shanann in anger after allegedly witnessing her strangling their two kids. In a sworn affidavit, Chris claimed the killings happened after he told Shanann that he wanted a separation. Prosecutors charged him with 9 felonies, including 3 counts of first-degree murder. In a shocking twist, Chris pled guilty to all of the murder charges on November the 6th, 2018. Just months after he pointed the finger at Shanann. He was eventually sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms for his horrific crimes. But just when you thought the case could not get any more tragic, in February of 2019, the convicted killer made a full confession detailing the horrific crimes. Many people were shocked when Chris Watts confessed to murdering his family on November the 6th, 2018, almost 3 months after he pled not guilty to the charges. So why did Chris finally admit to his alleged involvement in the slayings? His plan of action reportedly shifted when prosecutors said they would not seek the death penalty if he confessed to the terrifying crimes. Shanann's mother approved the idea, reportedly telling Weld County District Attorney Michael Rohr, quote, "He made the choice to take those lives. I do not want to be in the position of making the choice to take his," unquote. Although Chris was angry about the plea deal, he knew the odds were against him if the case went to trial. In his own words, that would convict him. His story did not work. He got angry, he didn't want to plead guilty, but he really had no choice considering the evidence. It took a little bit of time for him to come around, but he did. Rourke expressed relief that Shanann's name was cleared in the murders of Bella and Celeste Watts, stating, as reported by NBC News, quote, "What I can tell you most affirmatively today by what happened in the courtroom is the spotlight that he tried to shine on Shanann falsely, incorrectly, and frankly, a flat-out lie has been corrected," unquote. He added, quote, "The spotlight shines directly where it belongs, on him," unquote. Shortly after Shanann and her daughter's remains were discovered, there was a lot of speculation about how they died. Although the autopsy reports were completed, the public has not been able to learn about the findings because the documents are sealed. Prosecutors filed for this motion in September of 2018, a request the presiding judge granted to avoid, quote, "tainting witnesses that have not yet been interviewed and impacted future jurors," unquote, according to the court documents. Now, a partial or autopsy report actually has now, it has. We do have autopsy reports, although they're not, I don't think they're complete, the completed autopsy reports. But yes, we do have those. So I'm not sure if that's what they meant in this article, but there is autopsy reports out there, yes. I actually read those in the Discovery. Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were murdered, and their bodies moved from the initial crime scene. Weld County District Attorney wrote in his request to the judge, according to the Associated Press, quote, "There is a great deal of interest surrounding this case, and at this time, the cause of the deaths has not been made public. Consequently, the observations and findings contained in the coroner's autopsy report will be critical evidence at the trial," unquote. Okay, this was all before it went to trial, but it is a 2020 article. Considering Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant at the time of her death, it is reasonable for people to wonder why Chris was not charged with killing his unborn son, who they reportedly were to name Nico. The explanation? Colorado doesn't have fetal homicide laws in place, which means authorities were not able to include Nico on its victims list. A total of 38 states recognize unborn children in murder cases, while 8 states, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Iowa, Maine, New Mexico, Oregon, and Wyoming, have laws against harming pregnant women. Prosecutors in Colorado, where Shanann and her daughters were murdered, charged Chris with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy in accordance with state law. Although everyone might not agree about fetal homicide laws, authorities in this case must prosecute by the book. Additionally, some might argue that charging Chris with an additional death would not affect his punishment, since he's already serving 3 consecutive life sentences in prison, meaning there is no possible chance for parole. One of the devastating questions about this case rests on whether Bella and Celeste Watts were already dead when Shanann arrived home from a business trip in Arizona. All we know for sure is this. On the night of August the 13th, 2018, Shanann was dropped off at her home at around 2 a.m. by a friend, Nicole Atkinson. And according to the Ring doorbell, it was exactly 1:48 a.m. And prosecutors believe it is possible that she and her daughters died between and including August the 12th, 2018 and August the 13th, 2018. This timeline suggests that Chris possibly harmed his daughters before Shanann arrived home. It is worth noting that authorities charged him with 2 accounts of killing a child under the age of 12 while the defendant was in a position of trust. We'll probably never know exactly what happened that night, but Chris clarified the timeline when he spoke with investigators from jail in February of 2019. Chris claimed that after arguing with Shanann about their marriage, he strangled her to death. Bella supposedly woke up during the commotion and asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" And according to the interview transcript, Chris said he then placed the girls and Shanann's body into his truck. He drove approximately 45 minutes to his work site and killed the girls one by one after burying his wife in a shallow grave. He claimed to have smothered Cece first and then Bella, who supposedly pled for her life before she was killed. And of course, there's always the possibility Chris fabricated these new details given his history with lying. But there's no denying the scenario wrecked Shanann's family. As Shanann's brother, Frank Rusak Jr., told Dr. Phil in March of 2019, quote, "It is worse than we even thought," unquote. Before Chris pled guilty to the murders, it looked like his defense team was preparing to place the blame on Shanann. Chris's lawyers filed a motion for investigators to swab the girls' necks and hands for possible DNA evidence. Additionally, the defense requested that a DNA expert of their choosing be present during the collection process. The defense was likely trying to back up Chris's past claim that Shanann had strangled their daughters during a fight about their marriage. But the judge denied all of the defense's requests. The court cannot order the prosecution or the coroner how to conduct their investigation, the ruling stated. After the release of the joint law enforcement interview of Chris in February of 2019, during which he confessed to killing his daughters in addition to his wife, Shanann's loved ones expressed relief that her name was finally cleared. Speaking with Southern Colorado NBC affiliate News 5, the Rusak family attorney Stephen Lambert said, quote, "These tapes put to rest any kind of that speculation and that Shanann's memory can put to rest as a loving mother and a caring wife," unquote. Now, whenever a murder occurs, many people look for answers, and this case is no different. As the public has been at a loss as to why Chris murdered Shanann and their two daughters. One of Chris's possible motives involved financial struggles, a common source of tension between married couples. Chris and Shanann filed for bankruptcy in June of 2015 after they bought their $400,000 home in Colorado. The two were reportedly $70,000 in debt, a total they racked up thanks to student loans and credit card purchases. The savings appeared to be a total of $9.51 in one account and $864 in a joint checking account. And although Shanann was doing well financially, she reportedly made $80,000 a year, it's possible that Chris was concerned about the cost of another child, and this alleged motive, however, has not been confirmed. As well as there was another possible motive, Chris's alleged affair, to live a carefree life with his rumored mistress. Quote, "I think he had a vision of another life with this other woman, carefree, no responsibilities," unquote. And of course there was a few discrepancies in Chris Watts' version of what happened the night of August the 13th, something the public is well aware of by now. But what many people don't know is that Chris allegedly lied about Shanann's whereabouts from the very beginning. Nicole, a friend who was reportedly the last to see Shanann alive, said she knew something was wrong when Chris was supposedly evasive about where his wife went on the morning of her disappearance. Atkinson, who was concerned after Shanann missed an important pregnancy checkup, opened up about her bizarre change with Chris to Good Morning America on August the 20th. And she said, quote, "He just kept saying that he did not know where she was and that she was on a play date," unquote, Atkinson stated. Regarding a phone call conversation she had with Chris shortly after Shanann disappeared, quote, "But he can't give us the name of the friend, and I knew he had something to do with it that day. I was at his house with him, but I didn't want to think that," unquote. Chris was allegedly having an affair with a coworker at the time he murdered his family. The disturbing detail came to light in Chris's arrest affidavit, in which police claim they found evidence of his cheating following an investigation. The co-worker Chris supposedly had an affair with, who reportedly cooperated with the investigation, was later identified as Nicole Kessinger. And in addition to Kessinger, an unnamed man took to HLM's Crime and Justice with Ashley Banfield in August of 2018 to claim he carried on a relationship with Chris for 10 months. The alleged lover said he met Chris online and that they parted ways sometime in March or April of 2018, and as reported by U.S. Weekly. But multiple news outlets couldn't confirm the man's account, and it's not clear if police have investigated his allegations. What is obvious, many people were not happy that the show's host, Ashley Banfield, went ahead with the interview given the lack of corroborating details. Okay, the guy's name is Trent Bolte, and I have talked about him on the channel, read about him in the Discovery. His mother's interview is on the channel, and I do plan to get his as well here. Whether Shanann Watts knew about Chris's alleged affairs or not, the answer is not clear. There was speculation about an affair, but she did not want to believe that either. Shanann's friend Nicole Atkinson said in an interview, quote, "He wasn't being the loving Chris that he normally was. He wasn't touching or hugging or doing stuff like that, and he wasn't being the attentive father to the girls that he normally is," unquote. One of the most haunting aspects of the Watts murder case is Shanann's social media presence. Shanann's Facebook account featured countless photos of the mom happily posting with Chris and their 2 daughters, as well as snaps of the couple enjoying romantic vacations together. Shanann and Chris's lives seemed picture perfect. And given the tragic events that occurred, it's fair to wonder if Shanann and Chris were putting on a front for the outside world. A neighbor named Melinda Phillips suggested as much in an interview with People, recalling an argument that she witnessed between the two earlier in the summer of 2018. She said, quote, "Their body language was really angry, and they were just fighting back and forth. He was gesturing his hands, and they were shaking their heads. It was definitely a heated argument," unquote. But things took a strange turn when Shanann and Chris supposedly caught Phillips' eye mid-fight. Quote, "They caught my eye and suddenly everything changed like in the blink of an eye," she said. "They stopped being so angry and they started talking a lot more calmly. He even gave her a hug, mind you. This was in the space of 30 seconds to 1 minute. From a full-blown fight to hugs in less than a minute. It was really kind of incredible and surreal," unquote. In television and movies, murder suspects are often portrayed in an unflattering light. And whether they're a loner or they are emotionally disturbed or angry, there's typically something that's just off about someone who is accused of a violent crime. But in the case of Chris Watts, this stereotype does not seem to fit. One high school friend, for instance, could not believe the Watts that she knew had been charged with murder. Quote, "Most of our conversations that I recall were about music and things like that." Former classmate Brandy Smith said, quote, "I was a bit of an outcast and he kind of just seemed to understand me," unquote. She added, "Everyone just liked Chris. Everybody liked him. It's actually amazing how many people that knew him have completely turned on him and think he's this monster when he hasn't even been convicted," unquote. Then there's Lance Alfonso, who played football with Chris. Quote, "I've never seen him ever even get angry at anybody, even on the football field," unquote. And of course, a lot can change between high school and adulthood, so you can never know what's truly going on inside another person's head. And prior to the murders, Chris developed a healthier diet and adopted a more active lifestyle, changes that led him to lose a decent amount of weight. Some speculated that Chris's body transformation might have had something to do with the murders of his family, One reporter touched on it in an interview with the couple's close friends and said, quote, "When he lost weight, did you notice any changes in his confidence levels?" Unquote. A News 9 journalist asked Chris's former buddy, Nick Thayer. As captured in a video, Thayer responded, quote, "The only kind of difference I saw in confidence was with his running ability. I had been running for quite a bit more time than he was, and he was just getting into it. So, I would text him, 'Hey, I'm going to go for a 7-mile run,' and then he, after that, would be like, 'Yeah, I just ran 7 miles, unquote. As for Chris's personality, Thayer said, he didn't note anything off about his ex-friend's persona. He said, quote, "That did not change. It was always just shy Chris," unquote. Shanann's younger brother, Frank Jr., who is in the photo on the right, he took to Facebook shortly after Chris's arrest to express his rage and sadness about the situation. And he said, quote, "I just want to know why. My precious family, my one and only sibling, my sister Shanann, 2 adorable nieces Bella and Celeste, and her soon-to-be found-out unborn son Nico," unquote. He wrote. According to a screenshot obtained by The Sun, quote, "I just want 30 seconds alone with that heartless psychopath. May Satan have mercy on his soul," unquote. But Chris wasn't Frankie's only target. He also went after investigators who supposedly was taking too long to arrest Shanann's husband, writing, quote, "The cops drug their feet. He was the only one with them and backed his truck into the garage. Doesn't take a genius to know who was suspect. My blood is boiling and the pain and anger and sadness I have in my heart," unquote. Frank ended his post with a message for Chris saying, quote, "Nothing, absolutely nothing, would get in my way of taking away his life like he did mine and my entire family," unquote. Regarding the timeline of the investigation, cops arrested Chris 2 days after Shanann was reportedly missing. It's likely Shanann's brother was frustrated that authorities didn't take Chris into custody the same day his sister went missing. Other than the investigators' jailhouse interview with Chris in February of 2019, the convicted killer had not spoken out. That is, until first-time author Sherilyn Cadle published a book in September of 2019 detailing her written correspondence and prison visits with Chris. The book is titled Letters from Christopher. Many shocking claims were made in the book when Cadle reviewed during a November 2019 appearance on Dr. Oz, where she alleged Chris confessed to smothering his daughters before killing Shanann. And then, after Chris murdered Shanann, Bella and Celeste supposedly woke up. Bella, the oldest one, was crying, Cadle told Dr. Oz, about the girls allegedly walking in on the murder scene. Also, Cece was more confused. She was awake, and she's the younger one. This version of events contradicts Chris's claims to police that the only time he harmed the girls was at the work site where the bodies were found. Additionally, Chris changed his story about acting on impulse. August the 12th, when I finished putting the girls to bed, I walked away and said, quote, "That is the last time I'm going to be tucking my babies in," unquote. He supposedly wrote in a letter to Cadle obtained by the Daily Mail. "I knew what I was going to do, and I knew it was going to happen the day before," unquote. Although the book is compelling, these revelations may be inaccurate. Cadle's book, according to multiple reviews, was supposedly riddled with errors and misinformation. And what's more, authorities have never confirmed her findings. After Shanann and her daughters were reported missing, Chris's secrets quickly began to unravel. And one of those secrets might have been what blew the case wide open, at least according to the Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke. Quote, "Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell, unquote. Rourke made this statement in an ID Channel special about Chris's mistress coming forward with details about their affair. Although this might seem obvious, it wasn't only telling because it showed Chris was seemingly intent on starting a new life. It was a big deal because it painted the picture of him as a habitual liar. And if Chris lied about Kessinger, and he denied any infidelities to the investigators at first, then what else might he be hiding? As it turns out, Chris was supposedly lying to Kessinger too. Quote, he informed me that he did have 2 kids, that he was currently in the process of a separation from his wife, unquote. Kessinger said in police recordings shown in the special, quote, as far as I knew, that was becoming pretty finalized, unquote. I have to speak up here in the middle of this article and say I do not believe Nicole here whatsoever. I do not believe that she thought it was being finalized. I do not believe that she thought they were separated. And if you hear my discovery readouts and pretty much everything I read about that, then I will, you will hear why that I just do not believe what she's saying there. It was revealed that Chris had been untruthful with Kessinger, as he was lying to both her and Shanann to keep his plates of deceits spinning. It's unsettling to think about, but who knows how quickly those lies would have been uncovered if Kessinger might not have came forward or had been cooperative with police. We suspect justice would have been delayed, though it's impossible to say. Okay, I want to step in there too. Obviously, who wrote this article is not aware of the things in the discovery, so I want to step in here and say, yes, they knew about Kessinger before she ever came forward. They knew about her. Actually, she came forward, she called them the evening of August the 15th. Well, they knew about her on the 14th when they confiscated Chris's phone, as well as Anadarko had sent them information at 8 a.m. on August the 15th, emails between the two of them. So they were well aware of Kessinger. They were even getting the search warrants and things like that ready to go talk to her and things like that before she ever called. So I'm assuming whoever wrote this article is not very familiar with the discovery. Okay, sorry about that. Moving right along into the article. And I will put the link to this article in the description if you want to come and read it yourself. Seems like most of this article is really good. It's spot on, but there is some things in it that, just didn't fly in with me. And when I come across those, of course, I'm going to point them out because that's what I do. Shanann's family was under no obligation to speak out about their tragic losses, but they bravely decided to share their story with Dr. Phil in March of 2019. A lot of revelations were made during the episode, including Shanann's mother, Sandy. She had a story about communicating with Shanann, Celeste, and Bella after their deaths. She said, quote, I felt my daughter's spirit the moment she died, unquote. Sandy explained to Dr. Phil, quote, I knew. I swear to God I knew. I woke up Frankie. I woke up the whole house. I said, something's wrong with Shanann, unquote. Not only that, but the sad mom said she spoke with Shanann directly. She said, quote, that night I was lying in bed and I just felt a presence and I heard my daughter. I felt her. I heard her say, I love you, Mommy, and I'm so sorry, unquote, she said. And then she said, quote, she told me she was at peace, unquote. Bella, as Sandy recalled, expressed happiness about visiting Disney World any time she wanted to. She said, quote, I said, that's right, Bella, unquote, Sandy shared. And whether you believe Sandy's account or not, it's clear she loved her family dearly. Our hearts go out to her and the rest of Shanann loved ones. And although Chris is serving 3 consecutive life sentences for pleading guilty to murdering his family, it doesn't mean the case is over. One development that might have flown under your radar is Chris has been ordered to pay $6 million to the Rusek family for the deaths of his wife and 2 young daughters. The ruling occurred in November of 2019, 1 year after Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandy, filed a wrongful death suit against Chris. The amount includes $1 million for each of the deaths and $3 million for emotional pain, and will grow at an 8% annual interest rate. And according to court documents obtained, Watts reportedly did not fight the suit and agreed to the terms on November the 5th, 2019. To explain why a family might file a wrongful death suit, it effectively ensures the perpetrator cannot ever profit off the victim's deaths. This was the motivation for the Ruseks, as their attorney Stephen Lambert said, quote, "Just in case 20 years down the line now he decides to write a book, we would come for that money," unquote. Even with the insurance, it doesn't bring peace of mind to Shanann Watts' family. Frank Sr., Shanann's father, hasn't been back to work due to post-traumatic stress disorder, while Sandy, Shanann's mother, has described her life as, quote, "being adrift in a lifeboat, surrounded by water, and without a port in sight," unquote, according to court documents. It's all very heartbreaking. In such a disturbing case as the Watts family murders, sometimes the horrific details can overshadow the people who work the case. So it was powerful when Frederick Police Detective Dave Baumover, the lead detective on the Watts case, spoke out to the Denver Post in August of 2019 about struggling with PTSD. Quote, "It's like when you're a kid and you go on the wrong carnival ride and all you want to do is get off," unquote. He told the outlet about his emotional struggles. Quote, "But you can't get off. You have no choice until the ride shuts off," unquote. As Baumover told the outlet, he stopped working in March of 2019 after interviewing Chris Watts in prison for his full confession. It's unclear if he has since returned to law enforcement, but he sounded unsure about his professional future in the candid conversation. Quote, "I have a hard time dealing with the probability that my career has ended, and not the way that I wanted it to. Some days, I just feel defeated," unquote. CBI agent Tammy Lee, who was in the picture, had a similar reaction, once breaking down crying in a hair salon. Quote, "I felt like I knew them. I've been to many homicides of children, but this one was just different," unquote. Baumover and Lee, along with others, spoke out to draw awareness to mental health services for law enforcement. And this just goes to show how many people the case has affected. I thought this was a really good article to kind of put out there for anyone that's not familiar with most all of the case. It kind of starts and sums up the biggest part of it from the beginning until current. And, there's so much more in between that this article, of course, didn't touch on. And you can't touch on everything in one article. I just believe it's impossible. It really is. That is why we have the discovery, we have the many interviews, and everything. It's all here. But for anyone that's just trying to fill in some gaps and kind of figure out what's going on and how it all happened, even in the middle, from the beginning, middle, and end, that I believe this article kind of summed it up and done that. Again, I will put the address to the link that this article is on in the description box if you would like to come and see it for yourself. And so maybe you heard something new here. Maybe this helped fill in some blanks, and I hope it was of some help to you. Okay, guys, until next time, this is Unjustified.